Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. It's hot. I've been sleepy. I just had a security alert on my credit card right before the podcast, which is why I was a little bit late. So, you know, but we're here. We'll
security
manage.
alert. Somebody trying to use your credit card?
I don't know. Phishing scam.
Hacked?
It's all sorted. It's all okay. Nothing to worry about. But I did want to get that done while I was on the phone. You know,
Before
had to
the
wait on
podcast.
hold. That's right.
Yeah, I didn't take a shower today, so I'm wearing a hat.
That'll do it.
My deal. Yeah. Hey, Austin's online.
Whoa. Maybe he will join us. I did send him the link.
Maybe he will. He should join us.
Who knows? Maybe he's not.
If you're
off
wondering
the
why it's suddenly raining in your house, it's not raining in your house. It's raining in my house. It's Florida. It's summer. It rains like all the time. So I no longer have to water my lawn, though for whatever reason, the one dead patch of grass that will not grow back, I assume that somebody has salted that earth and to spite me. It's growing like crazy out there. We mowed on like Thursday. It's Monday. It's ready to be mowed again. It's awful. Hate it. It's awful. I don't know who thought St. Augustine grass was a good idea, but I don't even like St. Augustine. I do like St. Augustine. It's a lovely city, but their grass sucks. I will tell you that. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Go to www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. YouTube.com/C/AVRant. That's where you'll find the content. It's there. Or on your whatever downloader thingy you got. And if you come to me and tell me that you can't get it on whatever service that you want to get our podcast on, I will do whatever it's supposed to do to make that happen. It's usually not that hard. It usually takes me 24 hours.
All right.
That's from the time I start doing it. Not the time you ask me, from the time I acknowledge your email and then decide I'm actually going to put some time aside.
Yes, and Tom is the one who handles all of that type of stuff. I have nothing to do with getting things posted online. So
there's really no reason why you couldn't, but you're right. I do that. That's in my purview. You do your thing. I do my thing.
I have my share of things that I do on this podcast.
More than my fair share of things.
We can divide responsibilities.
It is not an equal division of labor. I will say that much right now. There's no equality in this division of labor. It's. I'm going to shut up before somebody makes me do something else because I got no time for it. Yeah. So, you can also contact us directly at rob@avrant.com. His Twitter is @firstreflect. I'm Tom @avrant.com. My Twitter is @avrant_Tom. Let me see. Then we got our producer, Austin, who puts together our videos and also helps with the list, question list, which is what he's I think might be doing right now. He's got his own Twitter @Austin TEN Pond. It's not TIN, which is what I thought for a long time. He also has his own podcast, We Watch Movies podcast about time release capsule content review. Time capsule, not time release.
You just did time release capsule.
Not time release. Time. I just said it wrong. Time capsule contents review.
Oh, like like bury the thing in the ground time.
Yeah,
capsule?
people bury their stuff, and then it gets digged up, and then they find out about it, and then they look at the stuff and decide whether or not it was worth burying. The We Watch Movies podcast about time capsules and how. Whether or not whatever was buried was worth burying and being in the ground for that long.
Was worth burying. All right.
I feel like that is an awesome podcast, though the name...
I'm still stuck on Digged Up. I'm sorry. Like, Grammar Rob is coming back right now. I can't get past it. Yes.
Exhumed? I don't know. I said it real fast. You don't have to worry about it. Just let it go. If I had written it, I would have written it correctly. Maybe. But... I should have gotten some water. I should have listened to you. That's their podcast. So We Watch Movie podcast about time capsules, contents. One little girl cried because her grandmother had buried something, and they all said it was stupid, and anybody who liked it was stupid. And the little girl liked it, and she cried, and they did not apologize. They felt like they were in the right. I feel like they were heartless on that episode. It was their most popular episode. I will say that much. The episode.
We
I
watch
think
movies.
It was 3032, if I remember correctly.
See, this is what happens when our topic list isn't terribly long. Tom thinks we have all the time in the world.
We have all the time in the world.
Just go around it. We're going to end
There's
up like
too
only
much
getting
news.
through 6 questions. That's what's going to happen.
Too many.
Too relaxed.
News articles. All right, we're going to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, all you have to do is go to www.avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and leave us a PayPal donation. Nobody did that this week. That's okay. We still love you guys and gals. We know you're out there. But if you can support the podcast in a different way, we're always happy to hear about it, and 2 of our listeners did just that. Jose wrote to SVS to let them know that his Prime Bookshelf and Ultra Center speaker purchase were 90% due to our advice. The other 10% was... I can't even imagine what it could possibly be. Oh. Will wrote to Accessories for Less to let them know that his Marantz SR6011 AV receiver purchase was thanks to us as well. So thank you, Jose, and thank you, Will, for talking us up to these manufacturers.
Yeah, for sure. Jose, Will, thank you both, and congratulations on your purchases. Very nice equipment. I'm sure you will enjoy it.
I am sure, too. In the news, last week, Apple's WWDC... My wife asked me about this. Mm-hmm. She said, I heard that Apple's going to announce a bunch of stuff, and then I never heard what they announced. I thought that, I guess that means that there was not much out there. I was like,
yeah, I mean, it was mostly software updates, and they did something with the MacBook Pro, and they're like, hey, if you want anything other than a single USB-C port, it'll be $2,000 or more now. So, that's how they're going with their ports. But, yeah, for home theater-related news, there wasn't a whole bunch, but this is what it was.
For a company that loves their dongles, I kind of feel like maybe they should give you places to plug them in. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base. I don't understand the new direction Apple is taking, which is apparently digging themselves into the ground. Last week at Apple's WWDC event included the announcement of AirPlay 2, an AirPlay update that includes whole house audio capabilities supported by Sound United, which I guess includes Denon, Marantz, Polk, and Def Tech, and other brands like B&W, Bang & Olufsen, Bose, Beats. Of course, Beats, they own Beats.
Oh, yes.
And the HomePod.
Yeah.
The HomePod, which is a $350 network speaker with 7 tweeters and a, quote, huge, unquote, 4-inch woofer.
Yeah, I laughed a bit at that part of the conference. They're like, it has a huge woofer, 4 inches. What? 4 inches?
I mean, compared
huge.
to if that was on an in-ear headphone, I would say, yes, that is a very large woofer to try to shove into an earbud. But it's not by any definition a large woofer anyways. And it's got Siri as well. Apple focused on its audio quality, which is supposedly using some processing to adapt to any room and lower distortion and other BS. But since it works with HomeKit and you talk to Siri, inevitably gets compared to the Amazon Echo and Google Home, which are both far less expensive. And I'm getting an Echo.
Yeah, as are most other
one.
people.
It's like $40 right now for
Yeah.
Father's Day. So
for the Dot. Yeah. And it's like every home automation company is like, yeah, of course we're going to work with Echo, whereas Apple's like, you must use HomeKit. Well, I mean, HomeKit has the security advantage. You got to hand them that much. It's like, okay, you want better security for your system, then you're going to work with HomeKit, but that, severely limits what products are available to you. I mean, some companies like Ecobee even had to make, HomeKit specific versions of their products. In order to make that work. So, yeah, I mean, $350 for what is essentially their version of the Amazon Echo. Okay, they're saying it will have much better sound quality, but then you could get an Echo Dot and attach it to fantastic speakers for less than this money.
Or an entire home audios. I mean, like everything, the whole world.
And I'm sorry, but I think it's ugly.
I haven't seen it. I didn't
it's
click
ugly.
on it. I don't care.
I don't like the
There's
look of that.
There's zero chance I'm buying another Apple product. I mean, until they innovate in some way that makes me think that they just say, what's Amazon doing? We should do that, but more expensive with less ports and more dongles. Kind of done with them. I'm currently using a Mac. This will be my last one.
Right.
And I have been a Mac. When I switched to Mac, I was very happy. I was very happy. I was kind of disappointed with the performances. And I'm still, in a lot of ways, not a big fan of Windows, but this is out of control. It's getting to the point where they've got their head so far up their own
well, I mean,
place
along those lines,
that they don't even see that they're not certain. I mean, they don't even see that they're not servicing their customers, and giving their customers what they want. They're like, oh no, people will want this. No, we won't. We don't want any of that crap. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, like the AirPlay 2 thing. I mean, that's an update that'll come with the next, OS version on your iOS device or on your Mac OS device. That's fine. That part of it's fine. Sending the audio out is no problem. But as there was no mention of all the AV receivers that are out there that already work with AirPlay version 1 now. Yeah. No talk of being able to be updated to work with version 2.
Yeah, probably not.
This is going to be another new sticker that they can put on the box. It's like, now it works with AirPlay 2. Here's our reason for you to buy another new AV receiver. I'm getting real tired of this nonsense. This stuff that doesn't seem to require any actual hardware upgrade. Yeah. Starting to tick.
All right, Tyler. He let us know that Samsung will be introducing an 82-inch and an 88-inch QLED TVs. They're actually, I guess they're taking a tangential shot at LG and their OLED display, saying that improved manufacturing efficiencies of their QLED displays. Q is better than O by definition. It goes past it. So it's very close. It's closer to X. Therefore, it must be better. Displays allowed them to make larger and less expensive screen sizes compared to the OLED. So,
yeah, as far as I know, this is only in Korea for the moment. I saw nothing about these coming to North America as of yet. Although they did announce an 85-inch size in their Q9 series when they first announced it. So that would qualify as being well over 80 inches. But yeah, since the whole Eco UMax 85 thing looks like maybe that's not going to be around much longer, these are definitely more expensive. Like the 75-inch Q9 is $10,000 right now. So that's not a whole lot less expensive than OLED. But
this says via Glenn, but it's not via Glenn. Glenn's just this marketing guy who sends me stuff all the time. Okay, so via me.
I was taking it via the
retro
email.
game console maker AtGames announced Atari 2600 and Sega Genesis Flashback and Ultimate portable game consoles. Okay, so they look like the Sega Genesis. They look like the Atari 2600, except they don't have the ports. Sometimes they have ports in front of it.
These ones actually they do have port. Like if you already own old school controllers. They do have
the controller port. I'm talking ports for the games. Stick the games in there.
I'm pretty sure they said the Genesis one does.
Does it? I didn't look at the Genesis one. I looked at the Atari because I was more of an Atari guy back then. So the flashback versions include wireless controllers and upscaling to 720p via HDMI with 120 games pre-programmed into the Atari and 85 games on the Sega Genesis. Can we talk about how that Nintendo thing was so hugely popular during Christmas, and then they just said, nobody really liked it, so we're not going to sell it anymore? Can we talk about that?
Thing. Well, I mean, it's still happening with the Switch. Like, everyone's like, oh, the Switch must be so popular, it's sold out. I'm like, no, they just don't like making hardware and selling it. They
want to make it, and when they want to be a garage producer.
It's weird.
Days.
I don't understand their thing. I don't know if they have problems manufacturing hardware. What it is.
I can't see how that can possibly be the case. I mean, it could be, but I can't see. I think the problem is that the classic, whatever they called it, what was it called?
NES Classic.
NES thing. Classic. Yeah. That they immediately got hacked, like
it did,
seconds after it came out, and then people were putting RetroPie on it and stuff like that, and they're like, "Oh, we don't want people to do that," and that was the end of that.
Well, I mean, they did say it was going to be a limited release thing. I guess they didn't expect it to be as popular as it was, but I mean, they did say,
dude, when you have a limited release thing and everybody wants it, you know what you do? You release more. Yeah, That's literally the definition of capitalism: supply and demand. You have the supply, they have the demand. If you have a limited release of something to test the waters, if the waters are full of sharks looking for more, you give them more. That is how you make money. I cannot understand the thought process behind this. It is surely, I'm telling you, it has something to do with the higher-ups over there being way afraid of competing against themselves.
Well, I guess since the Wii U did so poorly, they're just like, well, we're not making anything unless we know we're going to sell it. But yeah, back to these.
But they know they're going to sell this. They know they're going to sell it now. Why would they stop? They just say, wait, we're going to release some more like once a year. It'd be like Disney opens the vault or whatever.
Yeah.
Once a year at Christmas, you sell it. Dude, it would be like Girl Scout cookies. They would destroy. They just sell out every year. We're going to make 1 million more. Get them while you can. If you can't get them, they'll be on the eBay for like 15 times the price.
But yeah, I just saw
All
some
right.
images of the ultimate portable versions of the Atari and the Sega. So 2.5-inch displays on those things. So kind of cute.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Neato.
All right, Xbox Project Scorpio has an official name. The Xbox One. Wait for it. Wait for it. X.
Yeah.
The Xbox One X. Okay, it'll cost $500,
Yeah.
and it'll be launched November 7th. Xbox One X.
Did we predict that on air that it was going to be Xbox One X? I can't remember.
feel
That
like
might have been in a
we
hangout party
did.
after the show.
How could it not be the X? It had to have
Yeah.
X. I think we said Xbox X. We might have said
Right.
Xbox One.
Because I mean, it has to be further down the
Has to have
alphabet
an
than
X.
S. And
Yes.
they're still going to keep the Xbox One name because it does play Xbox One games, and the original Xbox One can still play any games that are coming out at this point. You know, it's so yeah. Anyway, it does have an Ultra HD Blu-ray drive. That's the most important thing to me.
All right. Got some comments from some listeners. Nathan just wanted to share a tip for anyone buying a UMic 1 measurement microphone. He got his calibrated version from Cross Spectrum Labs, and he intends to use it with a standard mic stand with a boom. They included a clip to hold the microphone when it fit the boom's mount, and he was getting a bit frustrated until he realized there's an adapter inserted into the clip's threads on the bottom. You unscrew that and insert and have a standard mic stand size threads. Might save a headache for somebody out there. So this is just like an adapter, basically, that you don't have to pay extra for, but you do have to find it because it's in there already.
Yeah, sometimes
Nathan
they
also
have
wrote
the thing there
Marantz.
for like a tripod, right? If you're using a tripod instead of a mic stand, the tripod has the smaller thread thing, so they give you an adapter, but not everybody's going to notice that it's already in there. That's not necessarily the greatest design. I guess it saves a little bit on shipping space or something, but
yeah, it probably does. And I think, for most people who are buying stuff like this, they encounter it once and then they know it forever. And all the rest of us who only ever buy a microphone once, we're like, this thing's weird, don't understand. All right, Nathan also wrote to Marantz to see if they had anything to say regarding Dolby Vision support, specifically for 2015 models like the SR6010, the SR7010. They replied that they have no plans yet announced for the USA for the 2015-2016 AV receiver models, but if and when they have any announcement, they'll post it on their website, so don't bug us. I had that last part. Nathan found it interesting that the 15 and 16s were lumped together in their reply. And it also seems a bit strange that the Marantz UK website clearly says 2016 models will get Dolby Vision update, but none of the pages for the other countries mention anything yet. So, yeah, a lot of these, I mean, we can read a lot into this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't read anything into it. I mean, they're not going to say anything until they say it, and asking them is not going to make it come out any faster. So, yes, the UK says the 2016 models will get them. We can assume that they will here, but we might still be wrong because they have been known to do that. They release in one market, they don't release in others for whatever reason. So
seems highly unlikely. I mean, Dolby wants it to happen. They're not keen on people who went out and bought Dolby Atmos receivers not being able to use Dolby Vision, and you can do it through a software update on a computer. SpectraCal did it instantly as soon as it was available, so there's no hardware reason why it can't be done. Yes. Yeah.
Michael shared on Facebook that Appearing Audio is having a Father's Day sale. It ends June 18th. And if you buy a pair of Intimus towers and an Intimus center, you get a pair of Intimus bookshelf speakers, either the 4B or 5B, your choice, for free. So even if you don't need them, you get them. Yeah. And then you can do whatever you want with them. Atmos or surround backs.
Complete a 5-speaker system for the cost of 3 front speakers.
3 speakers, that's right.
Not a bad deal.
Samuel bought a Marantz SR7010 AV receiver from Accessories for Less based on our recommendations. After a short amount of time, he noticed distortion coming from the left surround speaker. It was a static sound that was loud and annoying, and the factory reset did not solve the issue. He took it to 2 different authorized repair shops in Manhattan, but neither could identify or fix the problem. Samuel was frustrated, but he emailed and called Marantz directly. He says they were professional and responsive, and they honored the 1-year warranty from Accessories for Less by replacing his defective unit. So he wanted to give them a shout out for being a stand-up company, number one, this is Marantz, and to let other people know that even if the authorized repair shops can't fix the issue, in the case of Marantz, it's worth calling them directly, not to give up. I think what this really shows is that people who are worried that getting a unit from Accessories for Less, that their manufacturer warranty won't be honored can be, their fears can be allayed. This is proof positive that Marantz is like, oh yeah, accessory realize they're cool. You can send it back. We'll take care of it. I think it's great. So,
yep, that's the way it should be. I mean, it's a shame that this is far from the first time we've heard about the authorized repair shops not fixing the issue.
I had somebody ask me recently, like,
now.
oh, I've got this speaker, and this is like a portable speaker for a business, what they use for like a mic. And the power cords jiggles and it doesn't stay in. Should we take it to a repair shop? I'm like, you should buy a new one. Like, oh, there's a repair shop around the car. You should buy. I have, those places are like boats. You just throw money into them and then nothing ever happens. They're just, nothing happens. So I don't want to disparage electrical repair shops. I don't want to. But my experience has universally been that they can't fix stuff. They literally cannot fix it. I have no idea what they do there. So it's a very odd business model where you open a place, people bring you stuff, you say you fix it, and it's not fixed. How do you stay in business? I don't know. It's very weird. They probably talk to Nintendo. Nintendo will probably tell you, oh, you know what you should do? Limited release. Alan. All right. Alan might be the most reasonable vinyl fan out there. He has a large record collection, many of which have never been re-released in any digital format. And he wants to enjoy them with the highest quality they can offer, but he hasn't found that multi-$1,000 equipment to offer genuine improvement for what is, after all, a mass-produced format that really is just a piece of pressed plastic when you think about it. You don't have to think about it. You can look at it. That's what it is.
Yep.
So he agrees that there's an awful lot of ridiculous claims made about the superiority of vinyl, but he wants to share some tips that we haven't mentioned yet. Now, we're going to put this in the memory banks because I've read this already, and this is everything. I agree with everything this man has said, and it's also hilarious. Getting the very best sound quality from records requires quite a lot of effort. It's best to carefully align the cartridge and tone arm and adjust the tracking and anti-skating forces on a regular basis. Most of all, keep both the records themselves and the stylus extremely clean. Use their specialized brushes before and after every play, and wash your records for the lowest surface noise, which quickly returns once the record is played. Think about it. There's a needle going through a groove. The needle scrapes off some of the stuff that's in the groove. That ends up on top of the record. ... static. So you have to clean it every single time you do it. He then, this is number 2 or B or whatever, he suggests making digital recordings of your records so that you only have to go through the effort of playing them in pristine condition once. I feel like there's some irony in here, but I can't quite get my hands on it.
I like that idea, though.
He recommends you finding a used Technics SR 1200 Mark II for an excellent turntable, and then paying the extra cost for a moving coil cartridge over the more common moving magnet cartridge. The moving coil has lower mass, so distortion is lower, but so is output. So he recommends Emotiva's moving coil preamp to boost the signal, and again, recording the playback digitally so that you preserve all of this equipment and only have to use it once per record. I feel like what we should do is everybody who really wants to hear their records in the best way possible should go to this dude's house, play it. You can open a service, which is I'll make sure that you have the best, most pristine playback, and I'll put on the CD and send it to you, and then you could put a CD player right next to the record player. That
Technics SL1200 that he mentioned, that is a very popular. They've actually like reissued it, but now it's like a $2,500 player in the reissued version.
Yeah.
So that's why he's saying look for one of the originals, used in excellent condition or something like that. They're a lot harder to find now because quite a few people have tried to find them. So now the price on them is going up as supply of the originals is going down. So I don't disagree at all that that's an excellent turntable, but it might not be as inexpensive as you're thinking given the age and
compared to even $2,500 compared to some of these other things that are out there is a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I mean, like I mentioned last week, the Audio-Technica LP120, that one actually has a USB output built into it. It already digitizes on its own. You can just record straight into a computer from that. I agree. Upgrading the cartridge on that would be a nice idea. That's several $100s to get a good moving coil cartridge. But from there, you're good to go. So.
I did recommend washing the records. I know I did,
Sure.
because there's the little washer thing. I did not mention cleaning the tone arm and adjusting everything, because I've never used this. I haven't used this stuff since I was a kid, and I used it mostly to go because I thought it was a cool sound.
But I mean, to me, this is the perfect case of there are plenty of records that were released that they never released a digital version of them.
may never be re-released. And
Yeah, they
he's
probably
absolutely
never
right.
will.
This is
Yeah.
very good. But it seems, especially he's already got the collection. All right. He wants to enjoy it the best way he can, but he realizes that every time that he plays it, it degrades a little bit. So he's like, clean it, clean everything, make a digital recording, good to go.
Yeah, now you have that preserved. You
Yeah.
can make a gazillion copies of it. They're all perfect to each other. And yeah, I completely agree with that. The other thing is, I do 100% agree with the people who say, like, modern records coming out now, sometimes it is absolutely a different master that they put on the vinyl release, and that master sounds better. There are absolutely cases where that has happened. So,
Yeah, I think so too.
again, no problem with it, but I think this is extremely reasonable stuff. I like this this approach, because it's like he's a real dyed-in-the-wool vinyl fan, but he's like, there's also a whole lot of nonsense being said out there about vinyl. So I really like that, Alan. Thank you.
We've seen this master issue happen as recently as Rock Band, right? Metallica releases an album and then they release it on Rock Band. The Rock Band's got better dynamic range than the actual album, which was more compressed.
Better than 2 dB.
Yeah. So
from the quietest to the loudest, 2 dB.
All right. Let's get on some questions here. We got this first one is from Nick. So while Nick is still planning his dedicated theater room, he is presently enjoying his Pioneer Kuro and his 4.1 speaker setup. He'd like to upgrade to an HDR projector and a 7.2.4 Atmos setup. Both will be a significant cost, but he's leaning towards filling out his audio system first, since HDR projectors still seem to be a somewhat early stage, while audio seems to be a little bit more settled. Would we agree with that assessment? I would agree with that assessment. Okay, and this is why. I think, well, obviously, based on what we talked about last week, there are now HDR projectors which are kind of reasonably priced.
Yeah, $2,000 for that new Optima, which quite a few people tweeted at me about. So people are excited about hitting that price point, I think.
Yeah. And I am, you could definitely get into HDR right now and get something good that you could live with for a long time. I believe that you're at that, we're early enough stages that the price drops are going to come fast and furious over the next 6 to 12 months, maybe even 18 months. We're going to see some real differences. But as far as Atmos and all that stuff goes, yeah, I think you're good to go, and you could do that now, and it's not going to change significantly, I hope, between now and the time that you get around to buying this projector.
Well, I mean, the speakers and the subwoofers, very safe.
Oh,
purchases, I mean, the only thing that is a possible question mark at all is the AV receiver doing all the processing.
And that's because of HDMI 2.1 or whatever this might come out.
Which actually he's going to be asking about later. But yeah, I mean, if you get the 11 speakers and the 2 subwoofers, and maybe you're thinking you even want an amplifier, because, most of the AV receivers that do 11 speakers have 9 amps built in, so you're going to need at least a 2-channel amp. Maybe you decide, hey, I'll get a 3 or a 5-channel amp or something like that to, take a little bit more load off of the AV receiver. So, your amp, your speakers, your subs, all very safe purchases. So, yeah.
Right. I think audio is the way to go right now. So he says he gets most of his content from Netflix, both their streaming service and Blu-ray discs by mail. Other than Game of Thrones on Blu-ray, he has yet to notice Atmos audio being offered. Does Netflix support Atmos, either streaming or on the physical discs they rent out? Streaming, as far as I could tell, they don't. Not yet.
I haven't seen Atmos on Netflix streaming yet. No.
Yeah, they do support HDR. I mean, that you will see the HDR out there,
even some in Dolby Vision.
I have read that when asked, Dolby, I want to say Dolby said when they asked whether or not Atmos is going to be on Netflix, they said not yet or something like that.
Well, because Netflix is already using Dolby Digital Plus. And Dolby Digital Plus can have the Atmos extensions built into it. So it seems like the technology is mostly there and ready, but
the question is whether or not the demand's going to be there. And I think that's what it really comes down to, in my estimation, is whether or not there's going to be enough demand for Netflix to go through the trouble of putting it on there. Vudu has it.
Yes.
Vudu has it.
Although on a very limited number of titles,
Yes.
you have to
Right,
search
right.
for it. Yeah.
But I believe if you're going to see it, the first place you're going to see it is you're going to see it on. Actually, I don't know. I would like to say the first place you're going to see it is on their own Netflix original stuff, like the Daredevil and all that. But it might not even be there because that's extra money. Then they put as little money as possible into their content creation. I mean,
well, they're billions of dollars in debt from spending lots of money on original content,
but still, it doesn't. Yeah. It's not. They're not exactly breaking the bank.
I could certainly see Warner Brothers is almost always the first studio to support new formats and that.
Yeah.
So they have plenty of movies that already have Atmos mixes. I could see them maybe
Seems like it should be something they could do. But,
Netflix with a
we'll see.
updated version. Yeah.
It's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna come anytime soon. I have to be honest with you, and it may never come. And it's only because they're going to have to spend money to do it, and they're not going to spend the money unless they think they're going to get some return on it. And I don't.
Well,
think
hey, I mean,
Xbox.
if you're going to their actual movie store on the Xbox, they have some titles now with Atmos. So if they make way more money than all the other releases, yeah, sure they will, because there's so many people with Atmos setups. But as for the physical discs by mail, I mean, the question really is, because there aren't that many Blu-rays with Atmos on them, so the question is whether you're renting movies that even have a Blu-ray Atmos release to begin with. Then if you are, Netflix does sometimes get the rental-only versions of discs from the studios with the 28-day delay after the retail versions. So they're not just going out to stores and buying the full retail versions. They are sometimes getting the rental-only version. So even out of the Blu-ray discs that do have an Atmos soundtrack on the one you can buy in a store, sometimes the rental-only version doesn't, and that's the one Netflix gets. So, even there, your chances are not fantastic.
And there's people who have, I have reported, and you can find these lists like on AVS and other places. They've reported on which discs they have gotten. Like somebody said, I got John Wick, didn't show up. I got this Gravity, didn't have Atmos. I got this one, did.
Right.
I don't remember which one that did. But so they do have some physical discs that they rent out. It's just a matter of getting them. I don't know if you're going to or not. So he asks, how common is Atmos on Blu-ray discs? Is it mostly just on Ultra HD Blu-rays, or is it also on regular Blu-rays? And of course, it is on regular Blu-rays.
It is?
I own some.
But there are quite a few movies now where the Ultra HD Blu-ray version of the movie has Atmos and the regular Blu-ray version doesn't.
Right.
There are several that are that case. So what you want to do, go over to nextgenhometheater.com, because he keeps a fantastic list up to date. This is for North America. But for the North American releases, he has all the discs that have Atmos, all the discs that have DTS-X, and now he's got a separate Dolby Vision section and a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray section. So he's keeping right on top of all the releases that are coming out. So that's the way to check. And again, it would be good if you could make sure that the disc you're getting from Netflix is a movie that for sure has an Atmos soundtrack or a DTS-X soundtrack. Then you could rent that, and if it doesn't, then you know it's the rental-only version of the disc.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good resource.
I think we already answered this, but he knows that Vudu offers several titles in Atmos. Do any other streaming services use Atmos? Well, we said Xbox now has some.
I'm not sure if that even counts as streaming, because that's sort of download.
Yeah,
it's not really streaming.
I can't think of anything else that has Atmos. I know Amazon doesn't have it, so
no.
Yeah,
I
can't think of anything.
There was some talk that MGO, which is now Fandango Now, was supposed to be getting it, but that service is.
There was like three services that were supposed to get it, and Vudu got it, and nobody else did. So, not as of yet. So, cross your fingers, everybody.
Your real best place to get Atmos and DTS-X is actually Ultra HD Blu-ray out of everything, and second would be Blu-ray.
But remember, just because he doesn't have dedicated Atmos, you still use the upmixer. So you can still get sound to come out of there. That's fine. So when it comes to HDR, are AV receivers actually ready now, or should we be waiting for HDMI 2.1? I don't think we know for sure. I know.
It really depends on if that Samsung HDR10 Plus format gains any foothold whatsoever. Because
I don't know.
So HDMI 2.1, the biggest thing that it is going to offer is up to 48 gigabits per second of bandwidth. And there is absolutely no need for that for 4K resolution or HDR or immersive audio. We do not need it. That is all about 8K and 120 frames per second. That's what the extra bandwidth in HDMI 2.1 is all about. HDMI 2.0B, which is the current spec, can do HDR10 and hybrid log gamma, and then Dolby Vision is an optional thing. Dolby Vision can work on an HDMI 1.4 connection, hardware-wise. It's all up to the software support inside the devices when it comes to Dolby Vision. So, the current AV receivers, the newest ones that are coming out, particularly from Yamaha has said, our newest ones have HDR10 pass-through, Dolby Vision pass-through, and hybrid log gamma pass-through. And I'm certain that the new ones that are coming out from Den and AVRant will support those as well. Whether any older models will get an update to support hybrid log gamma, Lord only knows. We know the ones that have been out since 2016 are supposed to be getting a Dolby Vision update, but again, they haven't confirmed that on their North American websites yet. So right now, right this second, a current generation 2017 model year Yamaha is your safest bet. As far as the 3 HDR formats that we know will be in use, but if that, and it's funny because I've been reading some stuff about HDR10 Plus, and the people who have been trying to use it to make content, they're like, well, if you took all the things that make Dolby Vision good to use, and those are patented by Dolby, and you had to come up with janky workarounds to do it, that's HDR10 Plus. So even though it's free, the cost of actually doing it might make you go, maybe we'll just pay the license to Dolby.
Well, I mean, we experience this too, to be honest with you, in podcasting, because we're constantly using not the good software. We're using the free software.
That's right.
Because I mean, I love to use Pro Tools. I would love to. For a while, I did use Pro Tools. At the very beginning of this podcast, I used Pro Tools because someone gave me a product key for it. Found out, he's like, oh yeah, it's pirated key. I'm like, what? I'm using pirated? So I got rid of it. But Audacity, which is great, it is free. Yeah. I'm not bad mouthing them. It is so much worse than Pro Tools, and I was using like an old version of Pro Tools, and oh my god, the difference is, it's like, living in a mansion versus living in a double wide. I mean, yes, they're both houses, and yes, they'll keep you dry, mostly in the rain, but one is considerably better than the other. That's kind of what you're describing here. So will they do it? I don't know. Okay. The honest answer is we don't know. My gut feeling is you're going to be fine buying something right now. I don't see any need for HDMI 2.1, like literally anytime. But certainly not anytime in the near future.
And the real way to think about this is when you look at everything that does HDR supports HDR10. Everything. I mean, there's the Vizio reference TVs that came out too early, and for some weird reason they don't do HDR10. But that is one model of one brand of TV. Everything else that does HDR10, because that is the mandatory sort of baseline.
Yeah.
And hybrid log gamma can be translated into HDR10. Dolby Vision is being layered on top of HDR10. So if you have HDR10, you can get HDR. Will you get the most fabulous version ever? Possibly not, but you will get HDR if you have HDR10 support, and we certainly have lots of AV receivers that can pass through HDR10. So that's the real way to think about it, in my opinion.
Yeah. So Nick's current front speakers are Ascend Acoustics Sierra 2s. He intends to keep them, but upgrade all of his other speakers in his eventual 7.2.4 setup. He was thinking of using Ascend HTM 200 SE speakers for his top fronts and top rears, but going by their published measurements, they appear to roll off in the highs and have a dip in the mid-range once you get about 30 degrees off axis. Dolby says the top speaker should have even dispersion within a 90-degree window. And we're always saying that just point the top speaker straight down. So would that mean that HTM 200 SEs aren't a great choice? Should he use NHT speakers instead, or would Room EQ be able to compensate for the HTM 200's off-axis response just fine? Now, 30 degrees off axis. That's 30 degrees from the center line.
Correct.
Okay. That means they start to roll off if you're looking at both sides at 60 degrees. They have a 60-degree cone that's coming out of them.
Yeah, 60-degree cone, yeah.
And that's 2/3 of what Dolby is asking for, which is a 90-degree window, right? I mean, that's what they're talking about. 45 degrees off axis is what they're talking about. Don't look at the 30 versus the 90 and say 30 is a very small number compared to 90. 30 is not that small of a number compared to 45. So let's start with that. Second, how far off axis are you going to be sitting from these speakers? I mean, I don't remember what his room looks like. And he's going to do top fronts and top rears. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but why would I in my mind, why would you not do top middles? Like, to me, top middles seems to be like the jam.
Top front, top rear is sort of the recommended setup if you can do it. Because that's get you the full panning front to back and all that.
Anyways, doesn't matter. But are you sitting more than 30 degrees off axis of these things? On top of that, Atmos speakers really don't have to be all that good.
there's
what it really comes down to.
Yeah, there's also something that's specific to the HDM200 SEs. It's not unique to them, but it's specific to them because they are that nested array design where it's two 4 or 4.5 inch, I forget the exact size, but 4-inch-ish woofers with the tweeters sort of beside them and in the middle of them. So the dispersion of the high frequencies actually is a bit wider to the tweeter side of the speaker. Ascend actually has another measurement right below the one that we showed that shows both sides of the dispersion. And it is a little bit more extended on one side than the other because the two woofers act as a bit of a barrier to the high frequencies going out that side of the speaker.
So just make sure the tweeter's kind of facing
make sure the tweeter is closest to you. Yeah, however you're orienting them on the ceiling, just have the tweeters closest to your seats, and that'll get you a little bit more high-frequency extension in that particular direction, which is actually a benefit because it starts to make sure that you're not getting a whole bunch of reflections off of other surfaces in your room that you don't necessarily want. So you can do that if you absolutely need to. You can aim your Atmos speakers a little bit. The idea is to have all of your seats that you care about within the listening cone of the speaker. So you got 60 degrees to work with, and these things are on your ceiling. You can probably fit all of your seats within that 60-degree cone without too much difficulty. That said, the NHT speakers aren't a bad idea, but he did specifically mention they're in-ceiling speakers that have that weird triple tweeter design thing that I'm not really a huge fan of. I'm not even sure why they bothered with that. It's unnecessary.
I mean, when it comes down to it, these are Atmos speakers, and I kind of alluded to it by saying it directly, that they don't really have to be that good. I mean, the idea here is that they're not doing full range. They're not even doing partial range. They're doing a modification of the range. They have a specific number of things frequencies are supposed to hit. Dolby won't even tell us exactly what it is, but they're not doing anything above like a certain, do we remember?
That was more to do with the upward firing version where they have the weird HRTF curve and nothing below 120 hertz and all that. So the physical speakers on your ceiling or in your ceiling, I mean, they theoretically can be full range, but most mixers aren't putting full range sounds into the Atmos channels. That's just not really how they're using them for the most part. I mean, really, if you went with something like NHT Supersats, or what are they called? Super Zeros.
Super Zeros.
That would also be fine. If you went with the HTM 200s, that would also be fine. So I really don't have a problem going either way. I'm not sure I would go for those weird triple tweeter in ceilings from NHT. I don't think that's a fantastic
But you can.
design.
There's plenty of in ceiling speakers that you can choose that would be just fine.
Yeah, you go for like the AVRant in ceiling speakers. Those would sound absolutely fine.
Yeah. So. Bill has been having some major HDMI troubles. He bought a refurbished Denon AVR X3000. After a few weeks, its main HDMI output stopped working. He started using its Zone 2 HDMI output, but after about a week, that died too. He was immediately sent a replacement refurbished unit, but a little over a month later, first his cable satellite HDMI port stopped working, then his Blu-ray port, then all of his HDMI ports died 2 days after that. The man is killing HDMI ports the way I kill plants. All right?
HDMI port serial killer.
That's right, dude. Seriously. Don't ever touch my gear. Like, don't even come in my house. I'm sorry, you have to stand outside. I'll talk to you out there with the bugs. He sent it in for repair. He used an Onkyo SR353 while it was away. 5 days into using the Onkyo, all of its HDMI ports stopped working. His sources are a cable box and a Roku. With both of his AV receivers out of commission, he connected them directly to it. Dude, there is no chance in heck I would have done what you just said. I am not connecting anything to my projector. You have lost your mind. You are a believer, sir. You are a believer. With his AV receivers out of commission, he connected them directly to his Epson projector and ran optical audio. Now the HDMI port on his cable box just died, and it killed the HDMI 1 input on his Epson projector too. What the heck is going on, and what should he do? First of all, stop plugging in HDMI cables. Just step away from the We've heard of this before, right? This is like a power surge thing, right?
Yes.
Is that what this is?
I mean, this is what I strongly suspect. So actually, over on The Verge, which is the images I'm going to show come from that article.
We completely covered this in a podcast like, 2 years ago or something like that?
It might have been whenever this article came out.
2016, it was last year, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so these images, first of all, he showed some absolutely fried HDMI cables, which sounds like a very similar situation to what Bill's getting. And then he showed the culprit, which is that he unplugged the coax line going into his cable TV box, touched it to a piece of metal, and caused quite the spark.
Right.
Now this
it killed
happens...
everything in his home theater.
Yeah,
he killed his TV, killed his receiver.
That's right.
It was a brand new out of the box
Vizio P series, when the Vizio P series was brand new, and they were trying to review it, and it killed it. And he killed his plasma that he was very sad about because they weren't making them anymore, so he couldn't replace it. Yeah. This is what happens when something has gone wrong with the wiring. Now, in his case, someone had put a staple through the coax TV cable. All right, staple had gone through it because they were trying to secure it to the studs, but they put a staple right through it, caused a short circuit. But this can also happen when, some of the wiring is just touching part of the coax cable that it isn't supposed to, or there's improper grounding in your house, whatever it is. But this really, really sounds like a coax cable that is becoming energized for some reason, because everything it's the cable box out inputs that died first. It's the cable box itself that died. When the cable box was connected directly to the Epson, that's the port on the Epson that died. It really, to me, sounds like it's an energized coax cable from your cable TV. So what you should do is call your cable company and be like, hey, I have a fire and safety hazard. I think I have an energized
your
coax
fault.
Cable. Yeah.
You can either fix it, and dude, you have to keep this article on hand.
Yeah,
you have to send them the article and say, listen, this is what's happening. And unplug the coax cable, like with rubber gloves or something. Right. And, try to touch it to something not connected to an HDMI cable or an HDMI port in any way, shape, or form. See if you can get it to discharge. I mean, it might actually do it.
If you get a spark, then you know that's it. But I mean, this is far more than just bad luck. If you had one HDMI port on one device that died, we might go, okay, that could be bad luck. But
that's right. I mean, we've seen a couple of Marantz's lately, right? That they have a bad batch. Was it Marantz? Where the HDMI boards are going bad? Was it Marantz?
I think it was Denon. I think we had a couple of Denons.
We had a couple of them go out, and we think there's a bad batch. Well, that's one device. It's not contagious. Right. That's not how these things work. So, I agree. You've got something real serious going on here, and you need to take care of it right and stop plugging things into that cable box.
Yeah.
Justin, not Bieber. Justin has decided to keep his Hi-Fi Man HE400S headphones because he thinks they sound amazing. These are the open ones that are so open that you can hear everything out of them. Right?
Yeah.
All right, he also has some Shure SE in-ear monitors, and he plans to get a pair of sealed Audi's headphones. He wants to be able to drive all 3 of these to ear-bleeding levels with minimal distortion and a super low noise floor. Dude, don't do that. I mean, I know what you mean.
Yeah, don't go ear-bleeding.
But you can damage your hearing. He wants to be able to stream Tidal and play high-resolution FLAC files. He'd love to be able to play around with a good EQ and DSP as well. So he started looking at high-res digital audio players with streaming capabilities, the Pioneer XDP 100R and 300R in particular. The 300R offers dual DACs and dual amps for running balanced headphones. Is there any advantage to that? I'm going to say no. I don't think there's any reason why you need to run balanced headphones. Balanced headphones, if I'm reading this correctly, means that each can gets its own DAC and its own individual. Everything's separated. But is that the way it works, or is it?
It's not like it's not like dual mono, as in the left is separate from the
like
right.
The left
it's just
channel and this right channel are separate, right? Completely separate, and each one is powered by a separate DAC.
No, because that would be the dual mono. No, this is balanced where the rise and fall of the signal are independently amplified. So the rise of the signal gets amplified by one side, the dip of the signal gets amplified by the other side. So it's like a genuine Class A setup, except you're splitting the duties of the rise and fall of the signal. For a fully balanced signal, it effectively doubles the amount of wattage that can be sent to your headphones.
Right.
That's what it does. Some people will, of course, claim being a balanced signal that it will reject any noise that might be picked up. But if you are picking up noise in the headphone cable between your headphone amplifier and your actual headphones, I mean, man, what the heck is going on there? Because that's a short cable. I mean, even if it's a 10-foot cable, that's a short cable. You shouldn't be picking up any significant noise that would require a balanced signal to cancel out in that short of a distance. So really, it's just about you can deliver more power to the headphones. This makes sense on some of the really high end, especially if they're planar magnetic, like the Hi-Fi Mans are.
Right.
They can absorb a heck of a lot of power. It's not a horrible idea. It's a way of not having to buy or design ridiculously expensive op amps. You can use op amps that already exist and effectively double the power by making it a balanced design. That's sort of the advantage.
Well, I guess there was some benefit there. I was
there's some benefit there. Yeah, but it's the cost of doing it, because often getting
these
the
things are like
$600,
$700. He's looking at. They're $699. Both of these.
I know. Yeah, for these players. So I mean, the thing was
awfully expensive.
I wasn't totally clear because he actually just updated on Facebook today. So Justin, for the second question that you just asked today on Monday, June the 12th, we'll be getting to that next week. But he was also looking for like a network audio player to stay at home. So I think he actually does want a portable player.
Right. That's what.
Because I mean that's what these are. These Pioneers are portable players, and that makes sense. He's like, hey, I'm going to have really high-end headphones. I don't only want to listen to them at home. I'd like to be able to take them with me, and if I do that, I want to be able to play my high-resolution files, because I know that Justin uses a home theater PC, so that's probably his source at home, right? So I'm assuming that he does want a portable player. That's an interesting question, because, I mean, there actually are some really good phones. Samsung in particular has put out some really good headphone amplifiers in some of their phones. So is LG.
Right.
So there actually are just phones out there that can do a really, really good job of playing audio if you were already in the market for a new phone. I mean, a new phone, if you just bought it outright, is probably going to cost more than one of these players. So that might be something. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't overlook just using your phone, because there are some really, really good ones out there. But if what you want, separate player, that's what you want to do. Onkyo actually has one called their DPS1, also allows for balance, actually uses the exact same DACs and amplifier modules as these Pioneers.
The same thing, dude. They're the same company
Very
now, don't they?
similar.
I mean, it's
they are the same, yeah. But for some reason, the Onkyo version is cheaper. I don't know why.
That's why I looked at it and I thought the same thing. But if you look at the Pioneer page, they're like, oh, you can do this through the Onkyo music app or something like that. I'm like, wait a second, and then it's just rebranded for Pioneers.
Yeah,
probably
but for whatever
shiny.
reason, the Onkyo version is less expensive, so why not?
I like the TIAC one that you found. There's a couple of TIAC ones that are out there. That, I mean, if he's looking for something that's going to play, DSDs and all these other things, I mean,
yeah. So I mean, the TIAC first of all doesn't do streaming, and also it has a really bad user interface. I mean, I've played around with the thing. It's got a really nice headphone amp, and it actually does. So the second question, I'll just roll into it. He was saying, is there a way to use any of these portable players as the external DAC for his 2-channel speaker setup? So with the Pioneer and the Onkyo, the answer is no, because they don't have any input, right?
But the TIAC does. It has 2
does.
inputs, right?
Yeah,
Something
the TIAC does have an input, but it doesn't do streaming. So the interesting thing is, if this is for portable, I mean, the Pioneer and the Onkyo, they're Wi-Fi. It's not like they have a cellular connection. So if you're taking them with you somewhere, you'd have to have a Wi-Fi connection to do the streaming. So the TIAC, either way, the TIAC
But the
doesn't
TX
have a
got
Wi-Fi
like
connection.
32 gigs or something like that, and it's expandable up to
Yeah, all of
something
these are expanded
ridiculous.
with micro SD memory cards, but yeah,
And
the
if what
TIAC
you're gonna be
it
doing
has a
is-
horrible user interface. I mean, it really
Yeah.
is not a good user interface, but it's a very good headphone amp, and it can do the external DAC thing if you want to. The other thing you could do, of course, is use your phone, use its USB output if it's Android, or get the camera connection kit if it's Apple and they have a Lightning connector, and connect it to one of the TIAC portable amplifiers, because their
Right.
portable amplifiers are, $200 to $250, but they're really, really good. So if what you're concerned with is powering something like the Hi-Fi Man HEs, which I will say, those can use a lot of power. Maybe a phone out of its regular headphone jack wouldn't be able to power it that great, but the phone can be an excellent player, and then you connect that to a really good portable headphone amp like the TIAC. What is it, the H something 50?
HAP 50.
HAP 50. That's the
SE
one I
with a
know and
special
have used
edition.
myself, and it's really good. It's a really good headphone amp, and actually a little bit more powerful than the Pioneer Onkyos. Not balanced, but more powerful to begin with. So that's an option. I really wouldn't overlook a phone for this.
There's a
That's what
P90
I
too.
sort of want to get at.
P90 must be better because it's got
Well, the P90 is the player. That's the one that's the full built-in
is it-
player.
that's the player.
Yeah.
Oh, and then there's another one. There's a HAP5.
Which I also think is a headphone amp.
That's just a headphone amp.
Yeah. So yeah, some different ways to come at this, Justin. And this is all assuming
No, the
he wants
P5 has a
portable player.
USB DAC in it as well, but you have
Okay.
to connect it up to the. That was the one I was looking at.
All right.
You have to connect it
Yeah.
up to your phone though. Yeah. All right. Whatever. There's options up there. All right.
Yeah. I mean, if you can give the Pioneer or the Onkyo a try, I have no experience with them. I don't know.
Right.
They look like perfectly decent players. Certainly the Saber DACs and the Saber op amps that are built into them. Certainly quality parts, so I have no bones about the internals or the design. I don't know if the user interface is that great. It's based on Android, so it's
Could be
gonna
crap
be like a
or
phone.
could be great.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
and don't get hung up on the whole. I need a portable player that's just designed for doing this. I know.
Yeah, because I got a file for that, and like it has some noise floor to it.
Yeah.
So it's fine as a player. I can connect it to something else to the amplification, but connect it to my Shure or monitors. I'm like, I can hear a stupid hiss down there, so that's not great. Yeah.
So if you do want to use, just to reiterate, if you do want to use any of these players as a DAC, external DAC for your 2-channel setup, it does need to have an input.
Yeah.
That's basically what you need, and then you can, if
Which
you want to.
the TIAC does, but the TIAC lacks the streaming, so that's the problem. Yeah, it's a trade-off there.
All right, Infinite Gary. Gary says, assuming the speakers will be some high-end revels like the Salon 2 and the Voice 2 Center, which amp would be better, Emotiva or Outlaw? So he already has an Outlaw 5000 and Emotiva XPR5. The XPR is far more expensive and rated at for far higher wattage. But does this automatically mean the better choice? The Salon 2s are notoriously difficult speaker load, so Gary is interested in how we evaluate the most important aspects of an amp for driving such speakers. Other than noise floor, which is independent of anything else, what I use to identify the best amp for any particular speaker is how far away you're sitting from that speaker. That's the number one thing I want to know before I do anything else.
True.
Do not come to me and say which of these two amps is better for my application without telling me how far away you're sitting from your speakers. Then I want to know what your speakers are, and then I can tell you which amp is appropriate for you.
Sure.
Based on
now,
price.
In Gary's case, he doesn't have any setup in his house where he's sitting more than 12 feet away. I don't think he's even sitting 12 feet away from any of his speaker setups, but certainly not more than 12 feet, which is sort of the threshold usually. Around 12 feet, most any amplifier that's decently powered will be able to drive most speakers to full reference power. Beyond that, you start questioning it a little bit. So in his case, he's sitting, that 12 feet or closer for pretty much any setup in his house.
Yeah, so I mean, if you've already got them, this is something you could test, so you don't have to ask us.
But he's looking at what is our methodology if this is us. What do we do in choosing an amplifier? Which is, I think a very reasonable question.
Right. So I ask how far away you're sitting. Then I looked at what speakers and what kind of loads they present, and then I figure out how much power they're going to draw. at any given moment, and then make sure the amp can provide that, and then choose the cheapest possible solution that doesn't have a noise floor that is going to be audible. That's going to be audible at seated position. So that's what I do.
So, yeah, I agree. That's the same methodology. So particularly when you're looking at the speakers, if you're just looking at the specs, look at their sensitivity rating. Most of them will be given in however many watts per meter, right? Or they'll give it per 1 watt or per 2.83 volts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So look at that sensitivity, that efficiency rating, and if it's an 8 ohm speaker, and it's rated at 1 watt, 1 meter, then you can basically do the thing where if you double the distance from 1 meter, so you go to 2 meters, then that will require, twice that amplifier power, right? So you're only going up to 2 watts at that point. And then you double it again when you double the distance. So am I getting that right?
I don't know. I always get the math wrong.
Well, you got to go up 6 dB for the doubling of distance. So you double it once, double it twice, and then if you're at say 12 feet, which is like 4 meters, then you double it again and double it again.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll tell you that. And then if you want to work your way up to 105 dB, then for every 10 decibels that you want to go up, you multiply by 10. For every 3 decibels you go up, you multiply by 2. So you can figure out how many watts you need to hit a full 105 dB if you want to.
Right.
That's how you can work out based on the specs there. In this case, it's interesting because the Outlaw 5000, that is one of the models that was not designed and built by ATI. That's a Chinese company. I'm not sure which one that's building that for Outlaw. And then the Emotiva XPR5 had crazy high wattage, like 400 watts per channel into 8 ohms. Right?
Wow. Insane
amount of wattage, but not exactly fantastic signal-to-noise ratio. I mean, certainly not bad. Certainly not bad, but not fantastic. Which means that they're actually in the same sort of ballpark when it comes to the noise floor, in that neither of them actually presents a dead silent noise floor, but neither of them is bad either. But if you had really sensitive speakers or were sitting really close to them, I'm not sure that either of these would be my very, very tip-top choice. But with the Salon 2s, which aren't like super sensitive and you're not sitting super close to them, I don't think either of them would be a problem either.
There you go. Cheaper option is your best option.
Yeah, both of them can handle 4 ohm loads. You're sitting close enough that you don't really need more than about 100 watts, which the Outlaw can deliver just fine. So effectively, the answer in this specific case is I don't really think you'd notice much of a difference. I really don't. I think in this setup, however, if you were sitting significantly farther away, then the extra wattage of that XPR5 could absolutely come into play. But both of these are capable amps. They can both drive the 4 ohm load, no problem, and you're sitting close enough. And neither of them has the lowest noise floor ever, but certainly nothing bad.
Right. So Gary has been talking to some of his dealers, and they're speculating that laser-based projectors and genuine 4K resolution projectors will start to come down in price, maybe below $10,000 by 2019. Wait, what? We already have genuine 4K resolution projectors that are below 10,000, right?
No, we don't.
The ones we had?
We got the Epson laser-driven, but that's Wobble K with the 1080p panel. So that's not genuine 4K with laser.
Right, but these are two separate things. Laser-based projectors and genuine 4K resolution projectors. Those are two separate things. We do have a 4K resolution projectors, 2 of them right now. We talked about them last week that are 4K, right? The HDR.
The DLPs, the Optima DLPs. I mean, I guess you can call it genuine 4K. It's half 4K, but being wobbled. That's what the Optima DLPs are doing, but they're not laser driven.
Right. I don't know if you
Sony's got genuine 4K panels at $10,000, but not laser driven. Epson has laser driven at under $10,000 with their LS 10500, but it's not genuine 4K. JVC certainly has projectors under $10,000, but they're not genuine 4K and they're not laser driven. They do have a laser driven genuine 4K, but it's $35,000. That was that Blue Escient from JVC.
A little pricey. So he says it seems like
I could see Epson maybe having a genuine 4K panel with a laser-driven solution, because they've already got the laser light engine in that LS10500, or I could see Sony transitioning over to a laser light engine, or JVC just bringing the price down on their Blue Eshin. I can see all of those things happening. That seems reasonable.
And in this case, dealers are probably a really good source of information. They're much more current on what the prices of things are, and they're talking to manufacturers a lot more often than you are, for sure. So they're gonna have an idea of when these things are gonna start coming out. So I would take their word for it as well. He asks, it seems like 4K HDR projectors are still at an early stage, so how long before they're fully matured? I got a real problem with this idea of fully matured, as in a fully matured technology when it comes to displays. When we talk about something simple like a speaker, and honestly, a speaker is a simple device. I know it's complicated, but it's essentially a very simple device. A DAC is essentially a very simple device. An amplifier is essentially a very simple device. A receiver, when are receivers going to be fully matured? Never, right? When always
formats stop changing.
That's right. They are always adapting. When are displays fully matured? Well, they mature until the day they are discontinued, like plasmas. They were going along just fine, and then somebody said, we're not going to make them anymore because they're too expensive, and then they stopped. But up until that day, they were always evolving. They were constantly looking for better resolutions, or better black levels, and better this and better that. Better off-angle video. LED, perfect example. Still around today, still maturing. Was it going to be fully matured? Never. So when are 4K HDR projectors, how long before they're fully matured? Exactly never. They'll keep going until they're 8K projectors.
But I think he's sort of asking, when can you buy one that you can feel reasonably confident isn't going to be obsolete within 1, 2, 3 years?
I'm going to say
for example, right, that 5040, the Epson 5040, still a great projector. I will still recommend it. But if 4K resolution at 60 hertz is a big deal to you, it wasn't able to do that. We don't know if it's going to for sure get support for hybrid log gamma, right? So it's those types of things where it's like, do we know it's going to support the HDR formats? Do we know that it's going to display the signal, or is there a chance it's going to be obsolete next year? When are we going to get to the point where we can feel comfortable about that? That's a pretty fair question.
I'm going to say a year to 18 months. That's my sort of, we're going to get into this where we're no longer seeing, with the specs have kind of shaken themselves out, and the what everybody's going to be supporting has been shaking itself out, and we're just going to be going for, ours is quieter, ours is brighter, ours has got more nits, or this got,
right.
We're going to start getting back into those discussions and not into does it support this format or does it support that format?
Yeah,
I think a year to 18 months. That's my guess.
To be fair to the consumers who are asking, we are in the first generation of the single chip 4K DLP solution. These are the first ones. So, whether there's certainly maturing of that technology yet to happen, because there's the first iteration of it. I'm certain they'll start improving contrast and black levels and stuff on that as well. And it is this half 4K resolution that's being wobbled, but it gives full 4K detail. So there's things to be worked out on the DLP side. We now have genuine full 4K resolution liquid crystal on silicon panels. JVC and Sony both have that. I'm certain Epson's solution is easily in the works. So yeah, the pieces are always kind of there, and I tend to agree. I think in a year we'll see some of them where we go, yeah, that's a projector that's definitely going to last. I think Epson at CEDIA is going to announce something that does that. I think JVC at CEDIA is going to have something, Sony as well. I really think at the end of this year we'll see that. However, the price of them may be still quite high. So I'd say by CEDIA 2018, we'll see something at a semi-reasonable price that we're quite confident will last for many years to come. There, that's my prediction.
There we go. Brian, or better known as Brain the Vampire. I don't remember that, but I must have done it. Brian was searching around and discovered an older model of the Martin Logan Theos speakers. The price difference between them and the ESL-X speakers is negligible, but the specs are slightly different. The ESL-X panels are 40 inches by 8.6 inches with dual 8-inch woofers. The Theos panels are 44 by 9.2 with a single 8-inch woofer. We mentioned that a larger panel would be more resolving. So would it be better to go with the Theos larger panel despite its single woofer, or is the panel size difference too small to actually make a difference? So I looked at these a little bit. They are the Electromotion ones are a much newer model. I did not. Actually, I should have looked at the specs. The Theos are, well, I guess when they were released, were about $1,000 more.
Right, but now they're a discontinued model, so he's finding them for very close to the same price. The specs on them are exceedingly similar.
I'm looking at them right now.
Strictly by the specs, the newer ESL-X claims to play like 1 or 2 hertz lower, and it's also like 1 decibel more efficient, I think, or something like that. All of these things are pretty darn negligible. So I mean, it's mostly coming down to the size of the panel, but then he's in the situation where he's in a great room, and we were initially saying that the choice is difficult between the ESL and the ESL-X, and that because of his room size, if the money isn't a huge problem, we lean toward the ESL-X because we're thinking more of the mid-bass into his subwoofer transition. It would be nice in his room size to have a little bit more output capability in that mid-bass.
But isn't the
you do get the benefit of the bigger panel.
Panel size, isn't that what gets rid of that second 8-inch woofer? I mean, this 8-inch woofer is that... I mean, first of all, I don't know how, I didn't really look to see how these things are designed, but is the first 8-inch woofer more acting as, doing the higher part, and the second one doing a little bit more lower?
The ESL-X has like a front firing and a rear firing 8-inch together, and they're both active and they're both firing, and it does claim to be that little bit more efficient and play that little bit lower because of that. I mean, honestly, my real answer, Brian, is almost nothing to do with the panel size or the woofers. My real answer is the rest of your speakers are going to be from the ESL series. And just to make sure that they're all from the same series and all have the same voicing, I would lean towards getting the ESL-X because, in my opinion, the ever so slightly larger electromagnetic panel in the Theos, I don't think that's going to be enough of a difference. And if it has even slightly different voicing from the other ESL speakers that you're getting, then what's the point of that? I'd rather have the timbre match, right? And then I also think the dual 8-inch woofers are kind of a benefit in his room size. So in my opinion, Brian, is I would lean towards the ESL-X in your case over the Theos in this, just for the sake of being in the same series and having a little bit more mid-bass output. You're free to disagree, though, Tom.
I know I am. I'm looking. I'm wanting to disagree with you, to be honest with you.
You'd rather have the larger electrostatic panel? You think that's a bigger deal?
I think I would. But I think you're probably right. I think the voicing is going to make more of a difference. In theory, they should sound very similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Martin Logan goes for wildly different sounds between their different series, but...
So, I mean, there's a part of me that says that they're going to sound the same anyway, so just get the bigger panel. But I think the Theos look better, too, to be honest with you. They're slightly nicer looking speaker on top of that.
They're not drastically different looking.
Well, at least the picture I'm looking at, the Theos is like wood, nice, beautiful.
Oh, no, but you can get different finishes.
Well, I don't know what finishes he's looking at.
Yeah, sure.
Anyways. Probably go with what Rob said.
I mean, I want the center to match. I don't want any sort of timbre mismatch when things are panning across the front from left to right to center or left to center to right.
I don't know how much they're going to match anyways. I mean, come on, this is...
I know.
These, I mean, let's be honest. The
electrostatics very
electrostatics are very directional. The pan is going to be not in its wheelhouse of things it does well. I've listened to an electrostatic all surround sound system before, and they tried very hard to convince us, and they had them all over the place trying
Right.
to get good coverage. And it's fine as long as you're sitting in the right spot. But if you're not, then
But on top of all this, Brian and his wife heard the ESLs at a Magnolia and really liked them, which led to this whole
this
Martin
is
Logan
what
path.
you should go with.
So
That's
it's like-
really the defining thing.
You already know you like them, and I mean, he's saying, hey, for the same money, can I get something even better? That's a fair enough question.
I don't know that these are going to be considerably better. I don't.
Yeah.
There's nothing in here that makes me think that they're going to be considerably better. Might they
No.
be marginally better? I don't know. Might they be marginally worse considering how the other speakers can be pairing them with? I don't know that either. So I do know that the ESLs will sound good with the other ESLs. So
Yes.
I think that's what you should do. I really didn't want to say that, though. I'll be honest with you. I really wanted to tell you to get the other ones. That was really my gut reaction when I saw this. But Rob makes a good point. Will has bought a BenQ projector, silver ticket screen, and a Marantz SR6011 AV receiver, all on our say-so. He's also tried to follow our advice for speaker placement and subwoofer placement. His SR6011 includes Odyssey Multi-QXT32, and before it starts playing all of his test tones out of his speakers, it gets him to set the subwoofer output levels to 75 dB. He's using 4 subwoofers, so he splits one of the 2 subwoofer outputs to feed his pair of Energy S10.3 subs that are positioned at the front of his room, and he splits his second subwoofer output to feed a Dayton Sub 120 and Velodyne 10-inch sub at the back of his room. All these instructions are to adjust the volume knobs on the back of the subs themselves until the on-screen readout says 75 dB. When he does that, he only has to turn up the volume dials on all 4 of his subs about a quarter of the way. Does that seem right? His room is almost exactly 3,500 cubic feet, but it is L-shaped and it's a stairway leading upstairs, and there's a door up the stairway. No open to the rest of the house situation. But since the door is at the top instead of the bottom, it does mean that it's a somewhat irregularly shaped room. It was already irregularly shaped, it's L-shaped. It just feels like the volume dials ought to be a bit higher. So, but does Odyssey know better? Okay, I gotta be honest with you. I am slightly. Is there a picture involved in this?
No, there's no image sent.
All right. This is how you should be doing this subwoofer calibration before we get started with this.
Okay.
Because I'm a little concerned about how you're doing this. First of all, you've got 2 subs up front that are exactly the same. Or if they're equal distance from each other or from the microphone, if they're equidistant, then you can turn the volume knobs up theoretically. Oh, and they're identically placed. Say they're in the front left and right corners, and they're both in the exact same spot, and they're equidistant from the microphone. All that. Then you can turn the volume knobs up the way I'm reading this to mean in unison, because you have them both plugged in the same. What you really should be doing is plugging one in and then setting the volume dial so that it reads 75 or whatever it tells you to do. And then you unplug that one, plug the other one in, turn that one to 75, then plug them both in, and then it's going to tell you that they're probably close enough. I think it's got like a 3 dB tolerance or something like that. Might tell you to turn
like
it down.
that. But yeah, it might say 78 at that point or something close to it.
Yeah. So you're going to have to do that with the back subs as well, each one individually. You can't do them both at the same time. If you are, how do you know that you've got that one's not slightly louder than the other? You got to get them both the same. They need to be acting as one. So make sure that's happening first. Second, also make sure that your rear subs and your front subs, if you're plugging both, whichever subs are in the same inputs or are sharing input, make sure they're sharing a distance as well.
Yes.
And that could be a distance front to back, could be distance side to side. Doesn't make a difference as long as from the mic to the sub for both those subs is the same distance.
Yeah, which it sounds like it is. It sounds like he's got a pretty symmetrical setup.
It does.
I don't know if it's actual like 4 corners or it might be,
it needs
the
to be
2 subs in the front or beside his front left and right speakers, and then they're sort of mirror imaged with the 2 subs at the back. But it sounds, this to me sounds very reasonable. There's no reason why the 2 subs at the front wouldn't be equidistant from the mic and the 2 subs at the back wouldn't be equidistant from the mic.
I agree.
That seems very reasonable.
I agree, but it still needs to be said just in case. So
yeah, but I 100% agree with Tom that this isn't like you're not going to connect only 2 subs and run the full Odyssey suite. This is only during this subwoofer volume setup part of the setup. Do 1 sub at a time so that all 4 subs are perfectly level matched. And then go into the full Odyssey setup. I
Yes.
completely agree.
And after you plug them all back in again. At this point, you have them
That's
all
right.
plugged in. All right. So as long as you've done that and you've followed that, okay, then yes, Odyssey knows better than you do. Okay, that's what it comes down to. Odyssey is measuring 75 dB. That's what you should be. And yes, your volume knobs can be very, very low. Ask Rob, how high are your volume knobs on your PC Ultra 13, whatever they are?
PC 13 Ultras, yes. So mine
you
isn't
can
so
reach
much
out and touch.
Yeah, mine isn't so much a demarcated dial. It has a little LCD readout, and the range goes from 0 to 100, and mine are set at 4. So it's kind of low.
It's a little on the low side, but it's
they
fine.
Play plenty loud.
They play plenty loud. So yes, does he need to set his master volume on his SR6011 to 0 dB before running Odyssey?
No.
You should
Allow me
never
to
have
say
to
it.
do that.
No.
But Rob's going to make you do it anyways because that's where Rob is.
Where the master volume comes into play is if you are manually setting the speaker trim levels, right? So so Odyssey doesn't care where you set the master volume. It does its own thing separately. But if you were to adjust the speaker and or subwoofer trim levels manually, you've gone into the speaker settings inside of the main menu and you're doing that manually, that's where the master volume, we wish it didn't, but it does impact the test tones of the manual test tones for the manually changing the trim levels. The master volume does impact that. So that's where you need to have it set at reference volume 0 dB on the volume dial before you do manual trim level settings. But Odyssey doesn't care.
Yeah. Since he's a bit confused by the SR6011's volume readout on the Yamaha receiver that he replaced, its volume started at negative 70 dB and went through 0, then showed positive numbers up to probably about 12 or
12 or 18 or something up there.
Something like that. On his 6011, it starts at 0 and only goes through positive numbers from there. Dude, this... I don't know why Denon and Marantz started doing this, but yes, that is an irritating thing. My X4000 is exactly the same way. It started off at 0 and went all the way up. It's in the settings. You change the settings, and you can change it back to the correct way so that you know where reference volume is.
Yeah, so the tree that you would go through, you go into the settings, you go into the audio subsection. There is a tab under audio that says volume. So there's some settings specifically for volume within the audio section. And there you will see one of the scales says 0 to 98, and that is the default. So you did nothing wrong. That's how it comes out of the box. But right below that is an option to have the scale go from negative 79.5 through to positive 18. And that's the one you choose, at which point 0 dB on that setting is reference volume. So it's a manual thing you have to change. You did absolutely nothing wrong.
Yeah. So he's considering replacing his 4 10-inch subwoofers with dual SVS subs. Which SVS models would be the right choice for his room size? First of all, I think this is a good idea because the subs that you have, I mean, those energies are saying they play down to 21 hertz.
Do they? Is that what the specs say?
That's what it said.
They don't.
There's no... I would believe so many things before I would.
I mean, there might be movement. There might be movement, but
it might make air move. You cannot hear it, sir. Neither could anybody else. I think this is a good idea. I'm thinking it's 2000 series. 2000 series will do in here.
Ported 2000 series.
Yeah. Just have a couple cylinders, dude.
Yeah, 3,500 cubic feet would be a little bit large if you went for the sealed box, the SB2000s. They're like if you go by Audioholic's room size ratings, they rate those as a medium. But the ported version, the PB2000 or the PC2000 cylinder, those get the full large room size rating from Audioholics. 3,500 cubic feet is right in the middle of that large room size. So ported 2000s, if you wanted to go sealed, I'd step up it, which would get you to like SB13 Ultras, which are expensive and kind of unnecessary. PC 2000s would be a great choice because they're not huge in footprint, but they're they're just taller and they're a cylinder and they're cool.
I would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Jason asks, is there a difference in video quality between the various Netflix hardware platforms assuming the same content and download data rates? He has access to Netflix through his Apple TV 4. I didn't realize there's 3 on that.
4th gen.
Romeo, whatever this, Oppo BDP 103, NVIDIA Shield, and the app built in this Panasonic Plasma. He thought maybe the Oppo would have the best picture quality since it's known for its video processor, but it seems from watching that the picture quality using the TV app looks the best. The only problem with the TV apps is that the TV only supports Dolby Digital as opposed to higher resolution audio formats like Dolby Digital Plus. Is there really any difference between devices, or is he just seeing things? And what devices do we use to watch Netflix, and why? Yeah, okay. So download data rates and how well whatever your device is downloads is, I think, the number one factor that I've noticed making a difference in video quality or any kind of quality with Netflix.
Okay.
I have not A/B'd a whole lot of stuff. I've got PlayStation 3 and the Xbox One that I have gone back and forth on. I have used Netflix on other devices when I've had them in for reviews, and I never thought to myself that one was significantly better than the other. The big difference I saw was when I was using a wireless connection versus a wired connection. Okay. When I went to a wired connection, I consistently get great image quality, right there at the top of whatever it's supposed to be. Whereas without it, I haven't noticed it. I am sure there's some differences, and if you're seeing it, I'm not going to argue with you about it. I can't imagine exactly what they would be, other than the fact that there's different apps and they're built by different people, and mistakes are made.
Yeah, because Netflix does have different versions that are sent to different devices. Like if you're doing it on your phone over your LTE connection, that's a different file being sent because they don't want to eat up all your bandwidth on your cellular connection. The older versions that came on computers were based on Silverlight, and they've kind of moved away from that now. But if you still had an older device, then they might still have to send the older format. So there are different file formats. Depending on the device. I'm sure what's getting sent to an Android-based system might be different from what's getting sent to the WebOS on LG or something like that.
I'm wondering if his TV is just somehow got a newer or
maybe it's the only hardwired one.
I actually thought that, but he's not indicating that with his question. But I wondered if that was the case. What if that's the only? But if it, I don't know. Or maybe nothing's hardwired and it's got like the least interference between its Wi-Fi antenna and the router. Could be any of these, anything.
Yeah, like I don't have enough experience with enough different devices to say that I've definitively noticed any big difference in picture quality from device to device. But I will say it's not impossible that there is a difference because there are these different file formats depending on the operating system that's being used. So it's not impossible. What do I use? I mostly use my Xbox One.
That's what I use as well.
It's just convenient. It's what's there. It's what's on a lot of the time.
Honestly, if the PlayStation didn't have the stupid
Bluetooth,
the Bluetooth sometimes loses between the Harmony and the whatever, and that's kind of why I stopped using it as much. That Xbox I was using for other stuff anyways, and it's convenience.
And the Xbox One is also a quiet machine itself. It doesn't make noise, operational noise. So but I wish I could say more definitively for you if there really is like one best box, but Netflix does quite a good job of optimizing for each of their formats.
And their interface is just like consistent across most everything.
It is now. They worked on that.
I really like.
It wasn't always the case.
Yeah. I'm still very happy that I'm going to keep harping on this because I was so mean to Vudu for so long for their absolutely awful interface. And Amazon Prime's got a new interface and it's still garbage.
Right.
It's still terrible. It still doesn't give you
Sorry,
just tell I want to see horror movies. I don't want to see a line of horror movies off into let me scroll down and see many at a time, not scrolling over one. I'm gonna be here all freaking night trying to find a horror movie. How hard is this? And you know what? Let me tell you one more thing. Amazon. When I search for stuff, don't show me stuff to buy. I'm not looking for stuff to buy. If I was looking for stuff to buy, I'd be going to your website or something. If I'm searching within Amazon Prime, I want you to show me the free stuff. Don't tell me, my wife was like, can we watch what did she want to watch the other day? That it was some TV program that she thought the kids and we would all like together. And she told me to search for it. I searched, oh, there it is. It's on Amazon Prime. She goes, oh, let's watch it. I'm like, oh, you have to buy. You have to buy it. She goes, oh, that's okay. How much is it? I'm like, it's probably like $5 an episode. I don't know. I'm not buying it. It's ridiculous, man. You pay too much money for that crap.
Yep. No, I was going to say it's interesting. He was expecting his Oppo, and he says it's the BDP 103, so that's the Blu-ray player, not the newest 203. The 203 doesn't do any streaming at all of any kind. But being that is actually a little bit of an older player, I wonder if maybe the version that's getting sent there is an older file format. It's not the newest, H.265 or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would give your NVIDIA Shield a try because that's got the most sort of up-to-date chips, although being Android, I don't know, maybe they're sending a mobile version because
that's not a
Android
bad
TV,
point either. Yeah,
it's Android TV, so it should be sending a high quality Android TV version. Yeah, not impossible, but I wish I could give you a clearer answer, but honestly, I'm not sure.
All right, Bill. This is a different Bill, I guess.
We have a different Bill because we have Bill C, and now we have another Bill C, but it's a different Bill C. All right. Different last names.
Bill C. What are our views on single driver full range speakers? Can they really be full range? And if used with a good subwoofer, should they be preferred over multi-driver, multi-way speakers? All right, first of all, single driver speakers, I use them all the time. They're called headphones.
Headphones, yes.
They're great. I love them. If you're going to sit further away than that, then I don't necessarily think they're the optimal choice. I've heard many single driver full range tower speakers. They're usually got a little speaker up here at the very top, and then it's in a huge cabinet with a massive folded horn with a port at the bottom in order to pump out the bass so that you have some bass. What do I think? I think it's stupid. Honestly, I think it's dumb. I think it's a terrible design for a speaker. Can they be good? Can they be full range? No. Technically, yes. But no, not really. Not well.
Really. Man, is it difficult in the actual mechanics of making it work. Yeah, so Bill mentioned in his email this question was brought about because over on the HDTV and Home Theater podcast with Ara and Braden, they interviewed a designer who, makes and sells single driver full range, both just the drivers if you want a DIY and fully completed speakers. It was one of the more painful things for me to listen to. Mainly his repeated comments that speaker design is 90% art and only 10% science. I'm like, ugh, come on, man.
I would think that science would play a slightly larger role in speaker design, unless he's using art to move the driver in and out somehow.
And going on and on about how, measurements of all drivers are completely worthless and all you can do is listen to them. And he's been doing this for 40 years, so he knows. I'm like, it's entirely possible to be wrong about something for 40 years. And
clearly, it's also possible to be an idiot for 40 years. And this man is a proof positive.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far. I mean, he's doing a thing that appeals to a certain crowd, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. And it is possible to make something that sounds kind of decent, but there are some things that even he mentioned. He's like, the only way to have a driver that large producing treble is to have it not have very large excursion, ever, right? And if you don't have very large excursion, then you can't get a lot of bass out of it, or a lot of volume, which means that you need a very large cabinet in order to amplify the bass that does produce via resonance. So he mentioned all of that, and that it goes right along with what Tom just said. When you see them, they are these huge towers with huge folded horns to get a lot of resonance in the small amount of bass that they do produce, right? It's kind of the only way. Now, he was mentioning a thing about the larger the single driver, the better he thought the imaging of the treble got. And that's an interesting comment. Because the larger the diameter of the driver, the more directional the treble is going to become. That there is no, I don't care whether it's art or science, that's just a fact. When the diameter of the thing making the sound wave is larger than the wavelength of the sound wave.
It becomes like a parabolic, mirror, basically.
Yeah.
It just focuses all in towards the center.
Into a beam, exactly. Yeah. That's what it does. And there's no getting around that. I don't care who you are or what you think you're hearing. That is just a fact of the way that physics of sound waves works. So when he's saying you get this really excellent, Yeah.
not the
When
physics
when
of
he's
sound
saying you get
waves.
this really interesting imaging, that is actually kind of similar to when you have these huge magnaplanar panels or these huge electrostatic panels that are very wide and much wider than the high frequencies that producing. And exactly as we've talked about them, you get extremely directional beam-like treble, which means the sound that's hitting your left ear from the left front speaker can actually be very distinct from the sound that's hitting your right ear from the front right speaker, because the sound is coming like a beam into your ears, which allows you to have this very pinpoint imaging as long as your head is in a vise, right? As soon as you move your head even a inch, suddenly that imaging collapses because you're no longer getting this beam of sound into one ear and this beam of sound into the other ear. It's almost like wearing headphones, right?
Or
so,
you just wear headphones. There's always that option.
Yeah.
I mean, just to throw that out there.
On top of that, though, if you look at any traditional driver that uses a voice coil, and the ones that this gentleman was talking about are traditional speaker cones that use a voice coil, if you look at the impedance curve of any voice coil-based driver, you'll see starting at the lowest point that it plays, the impedance will swing way up, and then it'll drop right down to the nadir, to the very lowest point that impedance goes. And then it'll slowly rise, and then it'll turn into a hockey stick at the end and shoot way up. Mm-hmm. Every voice coil driver exhibits that impedance curve. And the part that you use is in between where it's relatively flat.
Right.
That's the section of frequencies that get used in any multi-way speaker driver, because you don't want this crazy dip down at the bottom that's going to demand a lot from your amplifier. Then you don't want it shooting way up to these tremendously high impedances at the bottom and the top either. And then below that point, you have a real problem. You start to get some really funky response below that. So when you try to use a single driver of any size to produce all the way from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, you're going to run, if it's a voice coil based driver, you're going to run into this impedance problem, which gets back to, well, then we better feed it very little power and have it move very little. Otherwise, we're going to run into amplifier problems.
That's right.
And he was even saying how at his company, they were forced to start selling their own amplifiers because people were having difficulty finding amplifiers to drive their speakers properly.
The only demonstration I have ever flat out walked out of was a single driver. I mean, the speaker started playing and I stood up. It was atrocious. It wasn't necessarily the speaker's fault. It was a very, very scratchy, terrible vinyl recording. The guy had spent 15 minutes telling us about this magical driver that he had gotten from this guy and this cabinet that's so beautifully finished and blah, 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 blah. And just went on and on and on. And he put this thing on. It was just like... And before the music started, I was like, nope, I'm out. And it was... You know the driver I'm talking about. It's got like this... It's kind of like it's a very tan material for the cone, and it's got like this little hat thing that goes around like the dust cap.
There's probably a little whizzer cone in there to give you a little bit more treble response.
That's right, and it's got a couple of... It's not a big driver, but I've seen these things before in high-end things, and apparently they don't make them anymore or something, or they're very hard to get, they're very expensive. Whatever. It's... Yeah. Okay, Bill, the answer to your question, should they be preferred over multi-driver, multi-way speakers? I cannot see a reasonable reason why you would. If you want flat frequency response and high fidelity reproduction of your source material, you are best off in a multi-driver speaker arrangement. And that is simply because of what Rob said. You're using the best part of the speaker, and you're using crossovers to get rid of the rest of the garbage that's there.
Now, the crossover is an interesting piece of this puzzle.
Right.
Because when you are starting out building your own speakers for the first time, the thing that most people, unless you're had some engineering experience, you don't know how to build your own crossover.
No.
Right? Now, maybe you just get it in a kit. Okay, that's fine. Or maybe you use an external digital crossover, like you program a mini DSP to be your crossover. That's an easier thing to get done now.
Right.
But that would mean you need a separate amplifier for each driver if you're doing it digitally, so that adds a little bit more complexity. So it's the complexity of having a crossover. It's much easier to build your first speaker cabinet put in one driver, connect the speaker binding post to it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's an easy design to wrap your head around and to construct yourself. And for Aura's part, where he built his own cabinets, gorgeous looking cabinets out of some reclaimed barn wood, right? So really beautiful cabinets that he made himself, and then used this simple design, single full range driver, but he was using them as desktop speakers where he's never sitting more than 3 feet away from them.
Right.
So output capability and amplifier wattage and all that isn't a challenge in that setting. And again, it's a little bit like headphones, right? So, there are these settings where I don't have a huge problem. And look, some of the most popular speakers in the world are single full range drivers. That would be Bose. But, no highs, no lows, because you're using a single 2.5-inch driver to try and produce the full frequency range. And it can't do it.
Right.
So these are all things. I'm not saying there's no time to use a single full range driver, but
Computer
the claim
speakers do
that
it
was
all the
being
time. Yeah.
Yeah. The claim that was being made in that interview that this is the pinnacle, the only way to get realistic. And he literally said at one point, this is the guy who was being interviewed, literally said at one point, I don't know why it sounds this way. I think it's because the driver is physically closer to the size of the instrument. I was like,
oh, we're going back to that again.
Whoa, dude, whoa. Because,
Which
first
instrument?
of all, he was talking about like a guitar.
How's the driver? How big is this driver that he's using?
Oh, because he's got 15-inch full range drivers.
Oh my god!
Right. So he was like, I'm like, well, it's not closer to the size of the string that actually is producing the waves. Right? You're saying it's closer to the size of the body that resonates as a hollow cavity. Okay, there were comments like that, like I said, it was difficult for me to even listen to and get through that whole interview because just like, oh, come on, why, dude? I mean, just stick to the facts. That's you make.
He doesn't have facts. He's got art.
Right. But I mean, you make single full range drivers. That's fine. That's a fine business to be in. There are applications for which to use them. Fine.
There are
but
people
why,
who will buy them.
Yeah, but why color it with all this nonsense and saying that speaker design is 90% art? It's like,
because
then that just it also it sounds like 40 years in, you don't know how to design a crossover and you don't know how to do the science, and that's fine. Hire someone who does, or stick to what you know. He stuck to what he knows. That's fine. But I mean, if you were to talk to Dennis Murphy or David Fabricant or something like that, these guys who are experts in crossover design, why aren't they using single full range drivers in their speaker designs? It's like, well, because they spent a lot of time learning how to design really good crossovers so that they could use drivers within the parameters of where that driver works most linearly, rather than trying to expand a driver beyond where it works linearly, because it's difficult to design the crossover or the filter to do that.
This is all marketing, is all this is. He's got to say these things the way he says them. He's got to use his flowery language, just like audiophiles always do, because they can't sell you on the science because the science isn't there.
Right.
They have to sell you on the dream, the promise. This is magical because it is, and this is why no one else is. This is a lost art. This is a lost art. All right, don't drink any Kool-Aid this guy gives you. Don't eat anything out of his little candy jar. Who knows what he's got that laced with? Just walk away. Now,
yeah,
like you said, there are many people out there who want this type of speaker, and hey, that's good for them. They want something unique that nobody else has, and that's fine. And maybe they really like them, and I'm okay with that too. Just like the vinyl guy earlier, I mean, don't come to me and tell me that this thing, whatever this thing might be it vinyl or single driver speaker or whatever, is the best thing ever, and you can't explain it.
Regardless of situation, regardless of use case.
Yeah, don't come to me and tell me that, because I'm gonna say why, and your answer can't be, it just is. All right? Because guess what? I don't take that crap from my kids. I ain't taking it from you, especially you who's supposed to be here 40 years doing this thing. If your best answer is, it just is, and I can't explain why, but it just is, then I'm sorry, sir. Go to school, read a book.
The advice on how to evaluate them, too, and the classic thing of, make sure you have really high-quality recordings with, full
Vinyl.
range in there. I'm like, no. Test tones, sweeps. That's how you evaluate whether the speaker is linear or not. It's really cut and dry, which is why they don't recommend it, right? It's really cut and dry. You listen to a full frequency range sweep, and that'll tell you right quick whether or not that speaker is producing everything linearly or not. And of course these aren't.
Drops completely off. You're like, listen, it's either the room or the speaker.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's the speaker since it happened like 15 times in the upper frequencies. So the sweep starts, but we don't hear it for 3 seconds. That's problem. That's problem right there.
You know, he was right that there is no industry-wide standard for measuring this is the target that all speakers should have. Absolutely, there's no industry-wide standard. But to say that we don't have viable science to measure this, I mean, like, have you just never heard of the NRC and all the research that Harman has done and all the other companies that have used the NRC's?
Let me introduce you to a friend of mine named Herb at Cross Spectrum Labs. He's gonna hook you up with something called a microphone. It's like an ear, but you plug it into a computer that's smarter than you are. But then again, so are many rocks. So let's just move on. All right, I'm enough without this guy. Let's get done with this thing. All right. Thanks for listening. We've got our listeners of the week. We want to thank one more time Jose and Will, who talked us up to SVS and accessories for less, respectively. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Will.
Yeah, Jose, Will, thank you both, and congrats on your purchases. And if anyone out there would like to support the podcast financially, just come on over to avrant.com. We also have all our show notes and stuff there, so if you want to see links to articles that we talked about or products that we recommended, we've got those show notes there, avrant.com. But over on the right-hand side, there is a support the podcast link, and you can go over to PayPal there. You do not need a PayPal account. You can just use a credit card, and you can send us a donation to help keep the podcast going financially.
And if you want to get your question answered on this podcast, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can also hit us up on the website, www.avrant.com, facebook.com/avrantpodcast, youtube.com/c/avrant, where you can see yours and everybody else's questions answered individually in their own little videos with nice little labels on them. Let me see. Contact Rob at avrant.com. At First Reflect is his Twitter. Tom at avrant.com. At avrant_Tom. You can hit our producer Austin up. His Twitter's at Austin Pond, TEN Pond. He has his own podcast, We Watch Movies podcast about polar bears. Have we done polar bears yet?
That doesn't ring a bell. That's topical.
Yeah. Polar bears.
Them poor polar bears are having problems. Feel sorry for them.
Yeah, feel sorry for them before they try to eat you. And then you shoot them in the face, and you're like, I feel bad I did that, but no, seriously, they love the polar bears. It's a polar bear. It's a We Watch Movies podcast. What else would it be about?
I know. We watch movies. Self-explanatory. Polar bears.
Polar bears. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.